All right, welcome to episode 8 of the Rap Thought Podcast. My name is Matt, here with Brandon.
How's it going?
And I feel very blessed. We're going to be covering one of my favorite albums ever. And just so our listeners know, all of the older albums that we discuss on this podcast, they're chosen at random. We don't sit and be like, we're going to talk about this album this week. We choose them basically out of a hat, and this album came up.
Mm-hmm. How did it get on the list?
Well, it was one of my albums that I wanted to be in the hat. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that album is Below the Heavens by Blu.
It's funny. I was thinking the other day when I first met you and everything, we were talking about music. You're like, yeah, man, you got to check out Blu Below the Heavens. I was like, all right. So, I'll check it out. So, but yeah, this is me checking it out.
This is one of those albums that was one of those landmark albums on my life. Like, it changed my life after I listened to it. And so whenever I hear that someone's into hip hop or like they like underground hip hop, this is the first album I recommend for them. I'm like, start here. You need to listen to this. And that's how I feel about it, because it had that impact on my life.
Yeah. And
so I feel that it can impact others as well. And then also, before we get too far into the episode, I want to definitely encourage all of you to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, leave comments, give us a review. We just put all of our episodes on YouTube, so you can check that out. Also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff.
Yeah, interact with us. I'm definitely, we came up with a couple of albums that we're interested in and curious about, whether we've heard of them or not. But it'd be curious to see, especially from different generations, people from different walks, the albums that you guys grew up listening to and that you like, and, maybe want our take on it. And I'm really looking forward to going, not like in a bad way, but going back and forth with people over social media of like thoughts on things. Like, hey, this is what I thought, this is what you thought, and just having debating, kind of learning more. That's how we learn.
And other listeners are going to interpret the album different than us. Like, they're going to bring up other points that maybe we missed or we didn't get to. We definitely want to hear that from you guys.
Yeah.
Let's get into the album. So the first time I heard this album was in 2007. I was still in high school, and back then I was super into underground hip hop, and I was on the underground hip hop forums, and people were posting albums. I go on there to learn more about music or learn new albums that come out, and people just kept mentioning Below the Heavens. They kept posting about it, and I'm like, what is that? I never heard of Blu. Who's Blu? And they kept posting about it. Album of the year. You have to listen to this. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I remember putting it on and just being like speechless. Just like, wow, I can't believe this album. Like, it's really like, it's hitting all of the spots for me. All the checkpoints of what I look for in an artist and in music. And no album did that to me before.
What did it hit?
It hit in terms of just being a young person trying to figure out life, like just learning and like figuring out philosophy, figuring out religion, figuring out where you fit into the world, your place, what's your purpose. And he went deep. Like, I like music that has a little depth to it. And I felt like this whole album, it gives you everything. It gives you those hard-hitting tracks. It gives you those rapping tracks. Gives you those more romantic, for the girls tracks. It gives you those deep philosophical tracks that makes you think. It gives you those tracks that a little bit more melancholy and sad. And then it has those like up tracks where it's more upbeat. So it kind of gave me everything. And it made me think about my own life in a lot of ways and in how I interpreted the world. Because I feel like this whole album is just Blu figuring his place in the world and him interpreting it based on how he grew up. And he's young. When he wrote this album, he was 20 years old, 21.
Okay.
That I felt like that was, and I was close enough. I was probably like 16 or 17 when I first heard this, so I was pretty close in age to him. So I felt like I could relate to him a lot of things going on in this album.
I'm trying to think of the first time I heard this, when you first hooked me up with this album, and it may have been like 2014 or 2015 or so. And I listened to it, and then I kind of was like, okay, cool, like, on to the next thing. But then, of course, for the podcast and listening to it, and to be honest with you, I feel like when, as you were saying, when you meet someone, we're talking hip hop, you're like, hey, this is a big one for me. You need to listen to it. And, I was running into it quite a bit. And so if we were talking music, it kept being brought up. And I think I have this complex where if someone keeps building something up, it makes me less inclined to listen to it.
Yeah.
And so like, even listening to it, now I'm like, whatever. But, there are actually some really cool themes about this album that I really liked. When he was talking about religion, it sounds like his dad was a reverend. And so just his take on the religion thing towards the end of the album, I thought was really interesting. I kind of, the being titled Below the Heavens, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, what does that mean to be below the heavens? And it was just basically his philosophical view on we're not in hell, we're just living below the heavens. We're not in hell yet. Like, there's still a lot of beautiful things about living in this world, even if there is a lot of struggle and death and crime around you. We're still below the heavens. Like, there's still something to look forward to.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because you've been listening to this album for 13 plus years or so at this point.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it for maybe 3 hours. So it'll be interesting to kind of have that comparison. So when I was listening to Below the Heavens was synonymous for reality for me, because he was we'll talk about this more, and I think it's Below the Heavens Part 1, where he's talking about, hell's a fallacy.
Right.
It's BS, it's just stress or the bullshit that happens in our life, but that's just from reality. But it builds character and makes you who you are. This is reality, where heaven is basically created. We create our own heaven. Everyone envisions a different thing for heaven. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really stuck out to me when I first heard this album back when I was in high school. It was like, hey, I can have my own vision of what heaven is. I can create my own heaven. I don't need a religion to tell me what that looks like.
Right.
I don't need my parents to tell me what it looks like. I can create it for myself. And in that way, it's almost like I can build my own path to get to heaven.
Right.
I don't need to follow anyone.
Yeah, and just as a disclaimer too, because I just to make it clear, this isn't a religious album.
No.
At all. So I don't want people to get, turned off or discouraged, like, oh man, we have a,
right. It's not a Christian rap album.
It's not a Christian rap album.
No, it's just his take on it. He's giving you his viewpoints on it as a 21-year-old growing up in LA. And
that's what makes it interesting, as we were saying earlier, is because, he was raised by a reverend. And his
stepdad is from the streets, basically.
Right. And so he has a completely, he incorporates all of that, respects all of religion, but puts it in his own way. That it's like, okay, like I vibe with that. That's kind of on par. I might change a little bit of my own thoughts to match that, because I like the way that he put it. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, so let's go into the first track, My World Is. And for me, it's like, this is that quintessential, I'm going to open up the album with a hard track, show you that I can rap, show you that I can put words together and I can be aggressive and be that typical, hip hop rapper.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely came out strong. This is my time. This is me. This is what I'm doing. You get a sense of him, definitely have a respect for his family. He wants to give back to his 5 sisters. He wants to give back to his mom. He respects his dad and everything. But it's interesting because of the dynamic with his dad over the course of the album. It goes from, like, this, in this song, it starts off with, props to my dad. But then later on, he mentions, domestic abuse in his family and his dad leaving. So it almost reminded me of Royce. Going back to Book of Ryan, where it's like, my dad's an alcoholic. This happened. He put hands on my brother. To the allegory when he's talking, he has a song dedicated to his dad. So despite what my dad did to the family and the implications he placed in, I still have a respect for him. So that's still something like I have to come to terms with.
Right.
It's a different one for me. I feel like if you're putting that much harm on a family, but it's teach their own. I feel it.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, I think he has so many dope lines in this And it's just like a fun song to rap along to. It's kind of like a battle rap. Like he's getting you set up. He's not necessarily like, this song doesn't necessarily fit into like the whole theme of the album of being below the heavens. It's kind of like just a hip hop way of like, it's almost like an epilogue before you get into the actual album. It's like, all right, I'm gonna start you off with this just to catch your attention.
Right, and what artist doesn't do that?
Right.
I mean, he has a couple tracks in here where it's just hip hop. We talked about that in KRS-One, where it's like he just has a couple tracks where he's just spitting and going in and other people.
Yeah, which is what you want from like a classic hip hop album.
I am not gonna lie, the Blu, it was pretty annoying in his song. I didn't like that.
Oh, you mean like
in the song? It's in the beat itself.
The what's it called?
Blue,
yeah,
Blue.
I thought it was dope.
I don't like that.
I like that.
It's annoying.
So yeah, super dope track. And then after that, we move into Simply Amazing. And then this kind of like just throws you.
Narrow Path.
Oh, sorry, Narrow Path.
Narrow Path, bro.
My bad. I clicked on it. Throws you into the Narrow Path, which.
You know, I thought Narrow Path was cool because I thought, you know, and when you say walking on a narrow path, it's like I don't have a lot of room to work, which is what he was talking about. But it's talking about it in a different way, where it's like I'm doing certain things to escape the environment that's outside of my house. So throughout the album, he talks about, you know, being in poverty, not a whole lot of resources. This has been a common theme in a lot of the albums that we've gone over.
Right.
You know, being surrounded by drug dealers. And I liked his play on words when he's talking about there are barely any stars in the city, so we're blinded by man-made lights. So he grew. This takes place in L.A. Right?
Yeah,
he grows up in L.A. So with that, like we all know cities because there's a bunch of lights, you can't see the stars, and it's a metaphor at the same time for like you can't see the lights ahead of you. You're just stuck in what's going on, but there's a bunch of man-made stuff. So in another tracks, he talks about, you know, we're looking at the drug dealers as heroes because look how flashy they are. Look how much money they have. Look how successful they look. So that's kind of like that man-made thing because was it KRS-One's album we were talking about where the government throws the crack into the neighborhood?
I think it was Royce.
It was Royce. Government brings the crack into the neighborhood. We start selling it, but then we're also getting in trouble off of it too. So I kind of got a little bit of that. But yeah, Narrow Path to me, it was, you know, referring to not a lot of room for opportunity, not a lot of room to work given the environment.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
I love the refrain or the hook. It says, I need a pen, I need a pad, I need a place to go to get this shit lifted off of my soul. And I think that's such like a deep thing for a young person to feel. Like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old to feel like I just need to write just to get stuff out of myself so I can feel good about where I am.
Right.
I need to get stuff off myself and I need to put it out there so that I can feel whole.
Right. I mean, in that term, journaling is a great way of releasing stress into, you know, a coping method. And so that's cool that he's not out giving into what's around him.
Right. I think one of the lines is we're giving into stress, funds, and dividends. And like we're giving into the, you know, these things that hurt us, and we go to it because in the moment it might feel good, or we think that's what we need, but in the end it hurts us.
Right. Yeah, it was cool. Juice and Drink. Oh wait, no, I skipped now. Simply Amazing.
Now we're on Simply Amazing.
Steel Blazing.
Yeah. Another super dope track. I mean, obviously we'll get to Exile's production later, but it's just like soulful. Like there's just a lot of soul that comes through the production, especially on this track.
So this is where I'm gonna go in a different direction a little bit.
Okay.
So in terms of his lyricism and his wordplay, I didn't like this song. In general, I don't like. I may get flack for this, but I don't like overly descriptive wordplay, depending on what it is. In the first two verses, there was a lot of stuff that I feel that I would personally have to go through and like decipher. Personally, in the music that I like stuff that's straight, given the artist, I like stuff that's straight to the point, in a sense. In comparison to the other tracks on the album, there were a lot of stuff that I liked. As we were talking earlier about Below the Heavens, I was like, dude, that's cool, that part on religion. But in those let's say the lyrics that he wrote to convey that idea, they were just simple, straight to the point, and they got the point across. This one I feel didn't, because he doesn't, in this song, this is the only one that I noticed where he does, I'll say, overly descriptive stuff. He doesn't do that in the rest of the album. So I didn't feel like that was a good
pretty sure
fit.
he made this song before the album. I think this is one of the first songs that he did. So he may have went, in your words, went too far with being descriptive and using a lot of words and rhyming. But to me, that's a plus. That gives you room to look deeper into and to discover new lines or new meanings each time you listen to it.
Yeah.
For me, that's a positive. That's okay, I may not catch everything the first time, but I know I have a lot more to dig through. That's value.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, is that artistic? Absolutely. Is it a great form of expression? Absolutely. Does it engage the listener because they're like, hey, if you really like this person, I really like this person, I'm going to keep listening to this over and over. I can't say that I like Eminem and then shit on Blu. That wouldn't make any sense. That's not fair. However, style-wise with this album, it didn't mesh with me very well just because it was a little different than the other tracks.
It was a little different, yeah. I can feel you on that.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite lines from this song was, my peoples need hope and I'm the one with it. And to me, this is him saying he's aware of the type of music that he's making on this album. And he's aware that how it can impact people and the messages that he's putting out.
I agree with that. And that's definitely a big theme you see in a lot of his other tracks of he's trying to give it to you real. And he acknowledges that there's people, but people are drawn to overly embellished things, fake things. And he talks about that in his love life in this album.
Yeah.
But I do like how he wants to, I put down he wants to give hope to people. And in this talking about wanting to be great, being great, doing great things.
Yeah. He doesn't want to be part of all the other typical rappers that are coming out at that time, especially in 2007. It was all flashy, bling.
Right.
30-inch rims, that kind of rap.
Man,
which was happening at the time.
2007, I'm not gonna lie, that whole 2000 through 2007, the music was fun. But that's the thing, it was fun. Was it necessarily educational? Yeah. Was it
to me, this was like a breath of fresh air. It's let's bring it back to early 90s hip hop.
Right.
Let's bring that back.
And that's where with this album, I'm that's cool. It would have been if 2007 Brandon he wouldn't have listened to this album. Would not, just with everything else that's out.
Why not? What were you not? You don't think those kind of messages would reach you, or you're just I don't even care about that?
You know what? I'm gonna say at the time the messages wouldn't reach me. However, I remember going around and I was asking some friends hey, I want to get into some underground stuff because that's around the time where Lil Jon was hot, T-Pain was hot, so there wasn't a whole lot of content, and 50 Cent, and a lot of there wasn't any content in this music. It was just about beats at this time. However, I was still looking for someone that had beats but could give me content at the same time. So the beats here wouldn't have been for me. The content was, but I wouldn't have wanted to, even to this day, I still, when I listen to an album, I listen to the production and the beats first, and then the lyrics come afterwards. So I still wouldn't have, probably at this time, wouldn't have followed that. I like it now.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, and to finish off this song, he ends it with the new P and CL was Exile and BL. Basically proclaiming him and Exile are the new Pete Rock and CL Smooth, which is a big proclamation to make when Pete Rock and CL Smooth have made classic material.
They were still active
from the 90s.
At least Pete Rock was, but that's another note that I put down as well too, was he also mentioned Pete Rock and CL Smooth. Oh, maybe that's another track because he mentions
he does mention a lot of rappers from the 90s, rappers who influenced him.
Yeah, because he also mentioned Tupac and someone else.
So then next we go to
Juice and Drinks.
So for me, when I first listened to this album, this was the only song that I skipped.
Oh.
When I first started getting into it, For me, the production didn't fit the album, and the song didn't fit the whole scope of the album. It was just, it's a cool track. It wasn't like I hated it and I didn't want to listen to it. Like Blu was spitting on it.
Yeah.
But it just didn't fit with the Below the Heavens theme. You know what I mean? But that's not to say it doesn't fit now. When I listen to it, I don't skip it and I enjoy it.
Right.
But when it first came out, I was like, I don't get it. Why is that song in here?
Yeah, I mean, and that's I didn't have a whole lot from this song. I just put like,
I think they're just talking shit.
Yeah, no, it's like I'm great and I'll fight you and win. And so that was kind of like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
If you have those tracks in there all the time, it is what it is. But so it was I can see why you would. I don't need to hear this. I'm here for other things, and this isn't anything that anyone else could say.
Right.
It's not.
So right after Juice and Drink, he goes into In Remembrance, which is kind of like a melancholy, like deep song. And it has some heavy messages in it. And he's talking about coming up and having... I think he's telling a story. I don't think he's talking about his own life, but...
I kind of thought he was. I mean, there was a little bit of, like... We've all had that where we're 18 or so. We feel like we know everything. Our parents are still regulating us themselves. Like, no, I got this. Like, get off me. But then it's not until you start getting it. You get older and you look back like, I didn't know anything.
Exactly. I mean, the line in here is thinking that I was a grown up. Please, I had so much to see. Thinking the little that I saw was all the world had to offer me. At 18, I headed off into the streets without guidance. Just the eyes of God watching over me. Like that's a heavy line for a young person to think about.
He definitely sounds wise beyond his years in a lot of his tracks.
he has an old soul for sure in his lyrics.
So you were mentioning he was 20 when he did this album, because when I heard this song, I got the notion that he was 22 because Mom.
So he started the album when he was 20.
Oh, okay,
and he finished it when he was 22.
Gotcha. Because he said Mom thinks he was too young to make the song at 22.
Right.
And then I put down that I agree with that because,
You haven't gone through life yet.
Yeah, it reminds me. You remember Chappelle's show where he did that skit where he was 18, he was 24, and then he was 32. And each one of those ages was how he would handle a situation differently.
Right.
Each one was different. And I remember being 25 and being like, I'm going to handle it different than 18, but I don't see how I'd handle it any different maybe 10 years from now. However, being 31 going 32 now, I can definitely see, I would still handle it way differently than if I was 22.
Right.
So when he said that line about Mom thinking that he's too young at age 22, I was like, yeah, I agree with that. Because you feel there's definitely a huge leap from going from 18 to 22, because at that point, maybe you moved out, you've gotten a little bit of life experience, you got your job, like you have a little bit, but you haven't done it long enough.
Right.
To have
the wisdom behind it.
To have the wisdom behind it. You have the knowledge. You have some knowledge. You don't have the wisdom yet.
So I think it's cool that he's self-aware of that. Like he's putting that out there. Like maybe I don't have the experience for it, but this is what I'm feeling. This is
how I feel.
Yeah.
And so I'd be curious to see what his thoughts would be, 10, 13 years later. I put a question down for you. So, a while back we were talking about J. Cole and how he has a song about losing his virginity. You're like, no, that's stupid. I don't like that.
Right, yeah.
He mentions that in this song of losing his virginity. So I was like, what are your thoughts on, is it okay?
I think it's dope. I think don't make a full song of it. You can mention it in the line. That's cool. Don't make the whole song about you losing your virginity. Like, I don't need to hear that.
It's all cool until the homie does it.
No, if Blu did a whole song of that, I'd be like, nah.
Okay.
But the way he does it in the song is dope, and it fits into the theme of the song. It works.
I mean, I thought it fit on Forest Hills, but yeah. So I mean, and I also put another note too that I liked this better than the previous tracks because it was telling like a very deep thing. But this
is when he really starts getting into the theme of Below the Heavens.
Yeah, like it got deep. Yeah. But I vibed with this harder than I did with Simply Amazing.
Right.
Where I was like, I don't want to decipher a bunch of stuff. I just want to know what you mean.
Right. He's being very straightforward in this.
Yeah. And I personally like upfront, straightforward.
Yeah. What did you think about the lines? He started talking about being African American. He's like, reminding you how we came. We rich now, but used to be slaves. We pushing whips now. We used to be whipped. Rocking chains when we used to be in them. Still complaining that we victims of the system. Shit is twisted, but shit, we came a long ass way.
I thought that was. There's a couple songs where I think there's about 3 or 4 tracks, including this one, where the end he just has these back and forth things these metaphors that go back to something, and I thought that was incredible wordplay, and I really liked what he was doing there because it's I've mentioned before that I really like this hip hop documentary called. Planet Rock, where it talks about how like crack influenced the rap game and everything, but you see a lot of images of people in chains and stuff, and it's definitely come a long way from slaves being in chains, being considered less than human in chains, to being a god now with chains that are flashy. Just your image has completely changed, even though you in a sense have the same things. Right. So I mean, I thought that was cool wordplay, and as we'll go into other tracks, like there's a lot that it brings up like that. I thought was cool. So, but yeah, I thought great. I mean, you can make the argument that it's a little too far fetched. It's like, dude, you weren't in chains, like you were fine, but it's still like referencing the system.
I think,
of like,
he's referencing his family. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like he's referencing his lineage, where he comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is, and as you know, as the line had said, like this is what we came from. Like we were here and now we're here. We're good. So I thought that was a really cool wordplay. Yeah. I liked it.
All right, moving on to Blue Collar Worker.
And that segues to that because I'm not gonna lie, I like the track name Blue Collar Worker because it's like blue as a worker now. Like he's out on his own, kind of doing things, working to survive. Yeah. And this is where I started to see a lot of his realness because I think it is this one, but he's just talking about how he's out there spitting at girls, spitting game, doing his thing. He doesn't want to tell them that he raps because then it's like, oh, cool, you rap. Like, then that means money. You make money. Like, I definitely like you. Yeah. So he's just trying to go in like, hey, I'm Blue. Like, what's going on? I don't really want to tell you this. I want you to get to know me as I am before I go into all this stuff. Right. And I thought that was cool. But the flip side is that these girls aren't interested in him. He's broke. He has no car. Right. They want nothing to do with him. But it's like, okay.
I just think it's like a fun song. You know what I mean? Like he's not getting too serious. Like he's getting a little more lighthearted, and he's like, like I rap full time and I do what I need to do, and I don't have a lot of money right now, but I'm still gonna get at these girls. Like I'm young. Like that's what I'm gonna do.
And that sounds broke. Because I think of people in high school that were passing out their mixtapes, and I was like, yeah, dude, you're not even that good. And so I can see where if he's doing that, girls be like, oh, okay, so you basically aren't reliable. You don't have a stable foundation. Like I don't want anything to do with you. So he's kind of in a tough spot because he's coming up, but it's not attractive.
Right. So he's like in a tough spot because he's chasing his dreams, but he also wants to meet women and hook up with them or be in relationships, whatever.
Yeah, he wants to do 20-year-old stuff.
Right. But he's just lamenting in the song that it's hard. It's not easy to just pick up girls when you don't have anything, you have nothing to offer, especially in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I think in the 7th track he goes into more depth with that by saying, I like this track, Dancing in the Rain, because it kind of had 2 different things for it. Work is slow, feeling pressure from his girl, because as we were just talking about in the last track, he's trying to pick up a girl, but because he doesn't have that status, it's not going anywhere. In this song, he has a girl, her cousin's husband, I think he raps, or he's just successful from doing something.
I think he's slinging rocks is what he does. Like he's selling drugs. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah, so he's successful, has money. So his girlfriend's looking at him like, dude, like you need to get your shit together so that we can have that. And so, and he's still broke, still has no car. But like he's still like living the moment. I don't want to say living the moment, but trying to make the best of a bad situation. It's like, this is rain. This is the storm. I'm going to dance in and have a good time.
Right. Yeah. Like when it rains, it pours. Like all these negative things are happening to you. But if you just have a positive attitude and you don't let it seep into your soul and like determine how you're gonna act, you still give yourself hope. And
Yes.
so he's just dancing in the rain to kind of.
What else are you gonna do?
Right.
Like there's no point in sulking and everything.
Like I'm wet. I'm soaked. I have nowhere to go. I don't have money for the bus.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna dance.
Make the best of it.
And he wants someone to do that with.
Right. The second way that I like how I used the term "dancing in the rain" was, at the second verse he's talking about he's getting pressure from the label. They're like, "Yo, are you going to put something out? Is it going to be good?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have it." But then he calls up his agent, I think, and it's like, "What am I rapping for?" He's talking about how he has depression, and they're just like, "Dude, use that. Use your depression, the stuff that you're going through. Use that as a motivation to do that." So he's talking about, how he used music as a way to escape his parents fighting, his grandma passing. So in Dancing in the Rain, it's like you can see all these issues as drops of rain dropping on him. And he's just dancing in it, letting it soak his clothes and just using it to propel him forward and to create something. So I really liked how Dancing in the Rain kind of used it in two different ways of like absorbing what you have and making do with it, but then also like this is what it is. So let's just dance in it and have fun. So I have respect for that.
It's a super dope song. It's one of my favorites on the album. It's just a feel good track. Like I think it's meant to put you in a good place no matter what your own situation is. So that's a good song to listen to. All right, going into First Things First, this is one of the the tracks for the girls.
And all the stuff I just said for Blue Collar Worker, I actually should have said for this one, but that's what I was initially thinking of. But with that said, they're similar songs.
Right.
Blue Collar Worker is talking about the struggles of being in the job force. First things first, because he says, hey, first things first, I'm Blue, what's your name? Right. That's where it all came from. So it kind of goes more in depth of Blue Collar Worker in First Things First.
Yeah, it's almost like First Things First is a little more focused on just meeting the girl. And it's featuring Miguel. I mean, before Miguel kind of blew up.
Right.
Miguel and Blue go way back. I think they've known each other since they were teenagers.
I didn't even know Miguel was in the game that long. I mean, he's not really someone I've listened to a whole lot. But I think of Lotus Flower Bomb with
Wale.
I think that was him.
Yeah, I mean, Miguel is super big now, but this is the first time I heard Miguel was through Blue. And yeah, I love this song. I think it's another fun, kind of lighthearted song. Like, hey, how am I supposed to approach you?
Yeah, and then this girl has her own agenda too, because she's out here, on her high horse, shooting people down left and right. Hey, it's like you're not attracted to me. You're attracted to these flashy dudes. May not even have anything much to offer yourself, but he's just basically talking about the downside of being broke. Like this is what I'm dealing with.
These are my struggles right now with women. Is like trying to compete with other guys who have the flashy car and they have the money and they can buy the girls whatever. He's trying to, but he's like, he says, I think it's in this song when he's like, hey, I don't have a Benz to pick you up in, but I can roll you a blunt and make you laugh. Like, I can just we can just hang out together and we'll have a good time and
genuine stuff that you do anyways beyond like the flashy stuff. It's like no, we actually chill and get to know each other anyways. So what we're doing. So I just don't have the Benz to do it in.
All right, going into The Good Life.
Good Life was a good track. It made me think about going back a couple tracks to In Remembrance, because in that track we were talking about how he thinks he knows a whole lot, and now it's innocence being put to the test because you have a kid now, and he's talking about here, do I have the resources, do I have the knowledge, do I have what it takes to bring this kid up and raise him?
I love the way that he starts the album or the song with, I got a call from my girl last week. She's telling me about the time of the month and how it may not come. Dropped the phone right before she said I might have a son. And I started asking God, how come? So to me, it's like he's really reflecting on, am I ready to have a kid? I haven't even figured myself out yet. and all of a sudden I have to raise a son, and I feel like God's punishing me, and you know, it makes him unsure of himself.
Right. And he touches on a couple different themes in this song. So he's talking about getting ready to raise a kid. He mentions how, and I had a respect for this because I feel that, you know, even till now, I probably share the same thing. But when you get upset, just not needing to rely on any type of extracurricular things, and just being able to just chill out, get one with yourself and just chill, figure it out. But then also the downside, though, or even when you come off of a high, you look out, you open up your eyes, the reality is still there that you have to face with. So you have to deal with it anyway. So I really like that display of growth of, okay, I just need to take this in as it is, and I need to figure it out and deal with it. So that's something that I definitely vibe with. But, you know, the other thing, along with the other parts of the album, is talking about, he references again to getting rejected by women, and how people are into material and flashy things, and how he's just trying to be real and offer what he has. Right. So, and then to back that up too, I really like the line, because as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple tracks where in the end he just does a lot of metaphors, referencing something really cool. And so in this one, it was fuck jewels, my soul shines bright enough, and fuck whips, I learn more when I ride the bus, fuck hoes, because in the end I need a wife to love. And I thought those were all really cool things to touch on, because as we talk about the materialistic things and the flashy things, it's like, yo, I'm good enough. I'm good enough. Fuck whips, fuck Bentleys, fuck all these things. Right. You learn more from people you see when you ride the bus. Like, you can be this flashy person. So I think I mentioned this before. I worked with a kid who, he lived at home with his mom basically, and that's not a bad thing. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to spend his money on a lot of flashy stuff. So he wanted this really expensive $900 Gucci belt. He wanted to be able to say, my outfit is worth more than your paycheck. Right. However, you still live at home with your parents, relying on their income. You're not in a bad area, but you're not in a ritzy area either. You're not, what you're trying to wear isn't along with what your outfit would say about you. So when I look at Blu saying, you know, fuck whips, I learn more when I ride the bus, it's like, yeah, you're accepting the environment that you're in. Throughout the album, he talks about how he's broke and doesn't have a car. So if you are broke, but then somehow you lease this car like J. Cole does in one of his songs, you know, it's just kind of like living this lie. It's
a false sense of a reality.
Yeah, and that's giving into what he's preaching against.
Yeah. I mean, those few lines really hit me when I first heard the song, and then after listening to it many times after that. It spoke a lot to me and how I already viewed the world, and I related to it and I agreed with it. And so if I felt like what Blu was saying, hey, I already thought that, he's like kind of reaffirming what I already believe. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really connected with it, is because I really liked what he was saying, and he put it in a way where like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, I like the way he ordered or put into words what I was feeling or what I thought.
And he tapped in on three things that, you know, as, you know, aside from that kid that I work with, there's other kids that I've worked with too, where they feel that if they just get this YouTube video off, they're going to be rich and they'll be good to go. And it's just that there's people that just want that fame. They want that fame. And so if it's not fame, which comes with fame and popularity, there's the jewels, there's the cars, and then there's the women. From a man's perspective, there's the women that come with it too. So it's almost like a triad that he's identifying. Right. And that's almost like the root of what people want. And so by identifying that here and mentioning it, I really like the fuck hoes, because in the end, I need a wife to love. It's like, yeah, you can bang all these girls out, fuck every girl in the world, just like Lil Wayne and the rest of Young Money. But at the end, when you get older, you're gonna want someone that's about you and not just an object, someone that you can share a connection with. So I thought that was cool to acknowledge that. And at 20 or 22 to acknowledge
that's crazy.
that.
Another line I like from the song is, check it out. It's so much I can show you without rolling through Beverly Hills, without money, cars, clothes, or even ecstasy pills. I don't need weed to ease me when I'm stressing for real. I just close my eyes and try to think how heaven feels. That spoke a lot to me as well. Like, I don't need to partake in what everyone else is doing. I just need to have my own way of coping with life. Like, I need to do it from within. It needs to come from within. It can't come from women. It can't come from drugs. It can't come from money. It's got to come from yourself.
Yeah, definitely. However, Soul Rising, he still despite the deep stuff that he does, there's other songs like Soul Rising, which is the next track, that's like, you know what, despite the realness, like, I'm still coming after whack rappers. I'll still come get you. Yeah. I liked the beat on that one. That was cool. And then, in Cold Hearted, he gets serious again. He talks about his life, the domestic dispute between his mom and his dad, how his dad left, how he had access to a gun from the top drawer of the shelf. So you've been listening to this album for years.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understood this right, but there were lines where I think he said the first seed killer 1, the second seed killer 2, second seed killer 3. So in another track, so there's that part. Then in another track, he mentions how he has 5 younger sisters and perhaps
6 younger brothers.
And perhaps 6 younger brothers. So in another part of the song, he mentions 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed. So if you add all of that up, it's obviously 6. 6 in the first part that he did, 6 in the second part. Is that a reference to his siblings that he has from both of his parents? Or does he have is that a pretty big family that he has?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a reference. I mean, just from looking at the lyrics, I mean, for me, like, when he says, my mom lifeless and weak, spending her nights in the sheets with seed killer number 1, seed killer number 2, seed killer number 3. It basically she's just sleeping with different men. Right. And they're not trying to get pregnant. Like, they're not trying to have a kid. They're killing the seed. So obviously it's either she's pulling out or using a condom.
Gotcha.
So he's like killing the seeds.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I thought it was in reference to the amount of siblings that he has. It's like, I didn't know if it was like a seed killing in the terms of like, you're not helping grow this seed and it's just going to die off later on because you're not going to be here to help nurture it. Right. So I wasn't sure if it was that but I think what you said made a little more sense. All right. Makes sense.
Yeah, that was a pretty heavy song.
That was a heavy song. And so this Below the Heavens part 1, part 2
The World Is.
Yeah, part 2 is just kind of like a instrumental that exits out. But Below the Heavens, this is what we were talking about at the beginning of the cast, where he's talking about being raised by a reverend, how he was raised to be a soldier of God, but being in touch with reality has changed that. One of my really close friends is kind of in the same boat. They grew up very religious, but then somewhere down the line, he began, I wouldn't say to question his faith, but it just wasn't in tune with what life was giving him. And so, and I can think of 2 friends that I've had where they grew up religious and then they kind of were like, no, this isn't really making sense to me now. I'm not going to say it was like an indoctrination or anything like that. I wouldn't want to offer that disrespect, but it's interesting when you grow up in something and this is what you're told is right, but then you start thinking for yourself. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but you just think about your best interests. Like, does this actually fit my agenda?
Coming into your own and having your own thoughts and having your own perspective separate from how you grew up, from your parents, from your siblings. Right. Just kind of gaining your own perspective on life. And that's basically what he's going through this whole album. That's what he's putting out there. One of my favorite lines from this whole album is on the song. It's in the first verse. Be a star out your gang and aim above the clouds. And if you miss, you'll at least be amongst your own crowd. And that's a direct reference to Gangstar. Be a star out your gang, Aim Above the Clouds. One of Gangstar's best songs is called Above the Clouds. One of the best premier beats. And he says if you miss, you at least be with your own crowd. So if you're trying to be something and you're trying to aim to get to a certain point, there's going to be other people trying to get to that point as well. But if you miss, you at least won't be alone. Like there'll be other people there with you that had the same dream or tried to do the same thing, and they almost become like a part of you. They're connected to you because they want the same thing. They're on the same journey as you. And I just thought that was a really cool line to reference that.
Yeah, it's a deep line. I like how he talks about, even for non-religious folk, we're all familiar with heaven and hell. And, he's obviously going to have a deeper context because his dad preached. But he talks about how hell is a fallacy and heaven is a fantasy. And then he adds, so don't believe in it. And I thought that was really interesting. And then he goes on to talk about how everyone envisions a different type of heaven. My heaven is not going to be the same as yours. Yours isn't going to be the same as mine or the same as someone else's.
Right.
But we create our own heaven. But at the same time, like questioning, can we also create our own path to that heaven?
Right.
So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, he's asking the listener a question, and he's getting you to really sit down and think about it, and analyze it for yourself. Like, wait, can I make my own heaven, and can I make my own way to get to it? And Blu is kind of just putting that out there for you to decipher and come up with yourself. Another one of my favorite lines on here that like it always comes back to me, whether I'm listening to this or not, is every man has his own heaven. The difference is the way that he envisions it. So if you make your heaven pictureless, by the time you die, you'll be drifting in an imageless field. I thought that was a really awesome line. And he really points out that you need to fill your life with pictures and doing great things and following your dreams or following your path, so that when you grow old and you look back on your life, you're like, wow, I really did accomplish all the things that I wanted to. And that's your heaven. That's what you did. Like, and he goes on to say, so fill your heaven full of blessed thoughts. So like have good thoughts on what your life is and where you want to go. That's creating your heaven. But if you're just drifting along and you're kind of just following others and you're following along other people's paths, your heaven's going to be pictureless. You're not going to have any of your own, input into that.
Yeah, and it's kind of talking about live your life in the moment. It's almost saying come up with goals and have those aspirations, have those dreams, have what you want. You don't have to wait to heaven to experience that. We can build this now. And hell doesn't necessarily have to be because you didn't follow the path that was predetermined for you according to God. You can say that hell is basically the BS, the stress, the depression, everything that you're going through now. And that's where, as we were saying at the beginning, that's where I kind of thought of below the heavens is reality. Because as you said, you don't have to be in hell, but you're just below the heavens right now. You're almost there. You're getting to where you want to be. You're just in reality right now. Reality has its hard times. It's part of life. We all go through it. But as he says, like it going through that makes you into a man. To speak in general to everybody, that hard times they build character. There's that saying that experience is the best teacher. Right. Good or bad, someone else's. We can learn from these things.
It builds experience, which turns into wisdom.
Right. So yeah, I thought that was a track that made me think, and I really respected it. I liked it.
Yeah, that's one track that like it's every time I listen to it, like I get goosebumps, and it brings me back to the first time I heard that song and just being like, wow, I can't believe someone's rapping about something like this. Like it's philosophical and it's making you like think deeper beyond just music. You're thinking about your own life.
The last track, I Am.
Yeah. Basically a bonus track.
Did that come on the first album?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was on the album.
And that's...
This is Blu Exile. spitting.
Yeah, it is, and and Exile gets on the track here and there. So yeah, but it was cool. But that's where in the beginning I was asking with because he had the line with 5 little sisters and like 6 younger brothers.
Yeah,
look like my mother. So it's like, oh, that's a lot of kids. So
so with all that said, we just went through all the tracks. You know, we talked about Blu's lyrics. How did you feel about the production from Exile?
I thought the production I thought it was good all around. I don't like the 2 tracks where it has the blue in the background because I find it very annoying. Yeah, I don't like that. But other than that, you know, he's pertaining it to him, and so like I respect that. That's cool. If I had a rap name and I put out an album, I'd probably do something around the same. It just wouldn't be as annoying. But you know, production wise, if that's the only thing I can complain about, then that's not it's not a bad thing.
I love Exile's production. I think it has a lot of soul, and all the samples that he used are incredible, and I think it fits really well into the Below the Heavens theme of being really soulful and giving Blu that space to like use those lyrics. It gives him that palette to really hone in on what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And they created this album together. It was like they sat down and Blu would kind of work with Exile to, you know, with the beats that he liked. It wasn't like Exile made a bunch of beats and sent them to Blu and Blu rapped over them. It was like they were at the same place in time when the lyrics and the beats were being made, which I think makes for a much more cohesive album. You know, it fits together really well.
Yeah, I think that's
I think Exile is super underrated when it comes to production. I think he's one of the best. He's amazing live. If you get to catch him, like he'll play the MPC live and he does all this crazy shit with it. It's nuts. Yeah, he's incredible. So overall, did this album connect with you? Like, is this something where it made you think about things that you may have not thought before, or did you just think it was like a cool album?
So I'm going to give you a mixed answer on that one. So I actually liked the themes from the album. He made me think on religion a little bit. I can't say off the top of my head at this moment, maybe if I think a little bit longer, but there aren't too many rappers that will, I feel like, genuinely come out and say, hey, like, this is who I am. I'm not trying to tell you about what I'm doing, but like, I genuinely want to get to know you, and I don't want you to get caught up on like what my profile says about me. I want you to get to know me for who I am. And so that was kind of a different concept that I'm not used to in music. And so I thought that was cool because, as I said, it was genuine. It was down to earth.
He's not playing a character. He's not playing a rapper persona.
No, and he's not the, you know, I'm going to say, quote unquote, like the typical of like, yeah, you know, I read that, you know, he sold some weed back in the day, but he's not like pressing that. Like, I went out, I sold drugs, I gangbanged, I did all this and that. I mean, you get the perspective of someone that's broke and trying to come up and make it, but also sharing life experience with you in a different way that's not.
Yeah. Which I think is why I connected to it so much, because I'm not a rapper. I wasn't rapping at the time. I wasn't trying to be a rapper, but I could still connect to this whole album because it doesn't matter what you're trying to do in life. If you're young and you're just trying to figure yourself out and you're trying to figure out your dreams, you can relate to this album.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with being a rapper. It's much more broad than that.
Yeah. So, I mean, but this is where I stand. Like, I really like those themes, and I thought that was really cool that he brought this out. However, I'm not going to listen to this album ever again. I'm not going to. I have to say, like, for whatever reason, Blu is just not someone that I can personally connect with. I don't know if it's the voice. I don't know if it's a style of flow. But, like, I'm not going to keep an eye out for the next couple of albums that drop after this.
Even if I make you review it, a new album.
if we do another one, we're doing it, and that's all good. But you know, I was thinking about it earlier today. And, you know, I think back to high school. My world civ teacher, he was very objective in his thoughts. I remember we were talking about whether or not we landed on the moon. And he first showed a video of us landing on it, and then he showed a video of us, the conspiracies against that, and hey, did we actually do it? but I never knew what his thoughts were because I really liked the way that he taught us, and I thought that was really cool. So from there on, I've tried to be like, in anything that I do, try to take an objective stance. So I like to know if we're talking politics, if we're talking music or whatever else, I want to do both sides. I feel like that's important instead of just coming at, an extremist from one side, like, no, Blue sucks, I fucking hate him, I never want to listen to him again. It's like, no, I can say, like, the album, I really like the themes. I like the stuff he was talking about. He made me think of some things.
Right.
However, I'm not following him. I'm not going to listen to any more of his albums unless like we review it. So, but no, like those are my thoughts on that.
That's totally fair. That everyone has their own palette, I guess, for music and rappers, especially. People can be very specific about what they gravitate towards and what they want to hear sonically. To me, Blue does everything that a rapper should do at a high level. I think his flow is incredible. His cadence, his rhyming ability is unreal. His writing ability is unreal. Like to me, he's a poet. Like he's putting poetry together. He's not just rapping at you. He does have songs where he's rapping at you and he's doing battle raps and whatever. But when he says those lines about your life and his philosophical and he's getting religious, like to me, that's poetry. Yeah. Like it goes beyond music. So for me, that's why I connected with it so much. And I've remained, like I'll say, I'm a Blue stan. Throughout all these years, all of his projects, I love all of them because he's different. There's no other rapper like him. He does things completely different and he completely is himself. He never chases a trend. He never tries to put out something to be part of the crowd or to follow what's going on right now. He completely goes in his own direction.
And just from this album, I can see the things that you're talking about from that. No one's talking about how broke they are. They may reference it in one song, but it's not a theme in their album.
Right. Or not being able to get girls.
Right. And a lot of rappers
and that's something they all go through. It's not like Blue's alone in that, but that doesn't sell records.
Right.
Talking about that, that's not going to make you popular. But that's what I love about Blue, and I think he's even said it in an interview or two. He said he doesn't want to be famous. He doesn't want to be on a major record label. Like that's not the direction that he wants to go to because then he loses control over his music and what he puts out.
Right.
So with that said, would you play this for someone else? Like if you met someone and they're like, yeah, I'm really into hip hop. I love, 90s hip hop and all that. Would you recommend this album? Like, would you play this for them?
So that's a hard question to ask because I feel it's when people ask, if someone were to ask me in general, like, hey, what's an album that I should listen to? I'm only going to recommend something that I really, 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 really like.
Something you personally connect to.
Yeah, that I really connected to. So, like, I may tell you, yeah, you should go check out To Pimp a Butterfly. That's one of my favorite albums. But this one, even though I said throughout this cast that, like, I really like a lot of stuff on here, I'm probably not going to recommend it to somebody. I'm not going to say, like, if someone came to me and said, hey, what do you think about Below the Heavens? I'd be like, yeah, it had some cool concepts and stuff. You should check it out. But if you were asking me to give you some albums to listen to, I'm not going to list it just because it's not something that I listen to. And I don't know if that's fair as I say that, but
well,
I don't listen to it. So
this is that one album that, like, anyone that I meet and I start talking to them, I have a conversation with them about music and they mention that they love hip hop or that they're into it, or they mention some other artists that are kind of similar to Blue. I'll be like, you need to listen to this album right now, immediately. Like, don't even talk to me until you listen to it. Yeah. Because that's how I feel about it. And I think this came out in 2007. I think since 2005 or whatever to now, 15 years ago, I don't think there's been an album put together as good as Below the Heavens in that time frame. Yeah. To Pimp a Butterfly is beyond hip hop. I wouldn't compare them to because To Pimp a Butterfly is it's a piece of art. Like that's beyond just like a classic hip hop album.
It's nothing to be compared because it's unfair to compare a lot of albums. Any album it's really unfair to compare to, but music in general. But as you were talking, it's like if we were talking about a particular subject, let's say religion got brought up, I would say, I actually just heard Below the Heavens, and he had an interesting take on religion. You should check this out.
So be more specific to
if it were a specific thing. If someone said, is there anyone that talks about being like all these rappers are all rich and stuff?
Right.
Is there like who's not like this? Like actually Below the Heavens, Blue, like he talks about being broke and his come up from that. You should listen to that. Gotcha. So I think for me it'd be different if you want like a overall what's something that that I could listen to right now. Oh, Pimp a Butterfly, Apocalypse Now, whatever else. But if we were talking about a specific theme and religion came up and like he had a really interesting take on religion, you should check this out. I could say that.
That's
I'll
cool.
go there.
I like that. So yeah, that is our episode on Blues Below the Heavens. Those are our thoughts on the album, our rap thoughts. Please subscribe. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It definitely helps us a lot. Hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, send us messages. We definitely want to interact with you guys, and we want to hear your rap thoughts.
Yeah.